Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of AnCap Radio. I'm your host for today's show, Adam Carswell, the voice of Liberty. We have a special guest joining us here today momentarily, John Leask. This is the beauty of of live Twitter Spaces, right? For those who are familiar with it, always something interesting that Twitter will do to complicate things for you as you get started. However, the beauty of that is it's really pushing us towards the end goal, which is to be completely. I mean, maybe we'll still be streaming on Twitter, but as you know, this is at some point going to be a 24/7 radio station, completely internet based, and we are building out the infrastructure for that right now. So, as we prepare for John, a little bit on his background. He's in the oil and gas industry in Houston, Texas, as a steel pipe salesman. He's also a contrarian investor, enjoys reading, exercising, and traveling in his free time. In 2020, he started Madness of Crowds, which doubles as an options trading newsletter and politics/economic blog. We will get a link to that here in a moment. And I see John has found us here in the wonderful world of Twitter. So to our team, if you guys could get John up here on stage. John, I don't know if you got a tap request to speak, but looking forward to diving in here with you today over the next, roughly 60 minutes to learn a little bit about your background, what inspired you to begin thinking the anarcho-capitalist direction and beyond. So, again, as we're waiting for John here, for those with us live and those listening on the recording, be sure to hit the like button, the retweet button, share this with your space, or excuse me, share this with your audience, your followers here on Twitter. I just want to continue to get out the principles and ideas of anarcho-capitalism. Well, we've talked about this a lot on the show lately as well. The AnCap Radio website is under construction and nearing completion. I don't think we're quite there yet, but soon, I know we're very soon, we're going to have a coming soon page, so you can at least go play around and see what it looks like. And then we just had a team meeting yesterday looking at what the final kind of finished version of it is going to look like. And you might not hear it in my voice now, or maybe you will as I perk things up here, but I'm very excited about the way this website is coming together. I'll go ahead on record and say now there's not a whole lot of things out there like what we're building that has been seen before. So we're just having such a good time getting ready for the future here. And speaking of the future, we have a voice and a leader of the future when it comes to topics in this realm. John, I feel like we've actually met in person before, but I guess we haven't. We've spent a lot of time together now. It's great to have you here. If you could just go ahead and unmute your mic and give our audience a quick intro and background. We just did your bio, but if you don't mind, could you just let us know? I mean, how would you say you first became an anarcho-capitalist?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can. You sound a little far from the microphone. I'm not sure if you're on desktop or on mobile. I know Twitter does allow desktop, but they kind of prefer mobile. So, anyways, yes, we can hear you. So go right ahead, good sir.
Well, let me see. If I need to switch to mobile, let me know.
All right. And actually, yeah, now that we're we're referencing it, you do sound quite distant from the microphone. So we'll give you a moment to reconfigure there. Again, if you're just tuning in, be sure to follow John. Be sure to hit the like button, the retweet button. This recording will be made available soon on our website as well, and all the previous AnCap Radio recordings too. We're building out this library, we're building out this archive. It's coming together quite nicely. So very soon you will have anarcho-capitalist content on demand. And by the way, check out SWP if you go to our Twitter feed here. Ladies and gents, Strategic Wealth Preservation. They do a show on our channel every Wednesday called Inside the Vault. Awesome show. We really like working with those guys and really looking forward to what the future has in store with us working with them. So, John, let's see if we got you here. Could you give it another shot there? Right now we can. Oh, I see them. It looks like you're talking. Hello, hello. All right.
Okay, how's that?
All right, we can definitely hear you better now. I can kind of hear
All right.
myself in the background, so I don't know if you have maybe you
Yeah,
might
can
want to
you
mute
open your machine?
your browser or your desktop. But yeah, why don't you go ahead and mute your computer, and then we'll fire it up.
Let me do it.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for your patience here. Other updates on the AnCap Radio front. We are working on the Guy Fawkes Award. I know we had some really solid, and I'm just going to mute you here, John. Just going to hear some feedback there. But we had some very, very great nominations for the Guy Fawkes Award. If you're not familiar with the Guy Fawkes Award, it is an award that was kind of created out of thin air on stream, on live here with Dave Henderson, New Zealand's Most Wanted. It's an award for those who have championed the state, those who have gone to battle against the state and won. I believe our leading nominee right now is Jeff Berwick, who's making waves in Acapulco, Mexico, fighting the state down there as they try to turn Acapulco, from what I'm seeing, into a 15-minute city. They are not going to let that happen. But we had some other really solid nominees come through too. So within the next month, we will be announcing that award winner. And again, whoever wins the award will receive a $1,000 cash prize that'll be in Bitcoin. And I'm catching wind that whoever the nominor is, if you nominate someone and they win, the nominor will also be rewarded a smaller lump sum of cash. So something to keep in mind if you haven't nominated anyone for the Guy Fawkes Award. Not only will the award winner get the prize and the cash prize as well, but so will the person putting the name in the hat. So here we go. Let's try it again. John, are you able to unmute? And let's see if we got you here. You're on mute right now, John. I don't know if you are attempting to speak. Can we unmute him? All right. Well, as we wait on the beautiful complications of Twitter and technology, we'll continue with the updates. More coming for AnCap Radio. Merchandise. This has been a big one really since we launched. From hats, hoodies, t-shirts, and beyond, the most coveted piece of merchandise that we're really looking forward to getting out into production and out to the masses is the AnCap Radio cigar. We're definitely still in the planning stages with this, but it would for sure be one of the main things we're excited about, being able to just get that AnCap Radio branded cigar out to our viewers and listeners. We love cigars here. Cigars actually are a big piece of what sparked this fire. And so definitely when the website launches, that's the next thing to pay attention to, will be the merchandise tab, but one step at a time, right? So we'll try it again. John, it looks like you can probably hear me. We just need to know, are you able to unmute your microphone and speak? I know I've actually interacted with you on Twitter Spaces a few times in the past. There we go. Can you speak here, John? We're not getting anything. You know, what I was going to say, John, is if you can hear me, I know in the past I've interacted with you on Twitter Spaces, and I'm going to assume you probably were using your mobile device when we did, just because that was a few months ago. Only recently did Twitter make it accessible through desktop. So if you do have your mobile device, can with 100% certainty guarantee the connection and clarity will be stronger. Feel free to interrupt me as well if you can't speak right now, but it looks like you're still getting connected there. So our team, if you could do us a favor here, again, as we're patiently waiting, if you could just drop the link in the chat as far as updates for AnCap Radio, email updates, definitely something that you'd want to stay up to date with as we get ready for the launch of the website. And John, I see you're back here. Are you able to speak? You're on mute right now. You just went from unmuted to muted.
How's that? Can you hear me?
Hey, and I'm guessing you're on your phone.
That is correct.
I think
there was a problem between connecting to the desktop and then connecting to the phone and then getting connected on two different devices. So I think I'm a little bit out of practice from the Zoom times from 2021.
No worries. Yeah, Twitter. I mean, I was just talking about it moments ago. One of the main reasons why we're really looking forward to the future of this platform is we will be branching off of. I shouldn't say off of. We plan on still being able to stream live to Twitter, but we'll have our own platform where people can listen in live, call in live, and we don't have to worry about the constraints of the Twitter gods, as I've heard, or the X gods, as some might say. So, anyways, you're here now. You can hear me. It sounds like we gave a little bit on your background and bio, but if you could just kind of walk our audience through again your background and how you became an anarcho-capitalist.
Yeah, sure. So, by the way, I've heard everything you've said for the last 10 minutes, and frustrating to not be able to speak, but we are good now. So just interrupt me if for some reason the connection gets bad or anything. But yeah, I think, I guess this goes into a very philosophical discussion, but it's kind of nature versus nurture. I think I've heard Doug Casey say that essentially AnCaps are born, they're not really raised, or something along those lines. So I think I was always an AnCap, and there was just kind of I guess kind of like the Matrix. I was waiting for some kind of catalyst. So for me, that catalyst came in the 2012 Republican primary. I'm sure you know where I'm going with this, but when Ron Paul was running, I remember, I guess growing up, my family was always somewhat politically engaged, and we would watch some of the debates. We would watch the electoral process play out. I think the very first experience I remember was the 2000 election. I remember my grandma was watching, I guess, babysitting for my parents while they were traveling, and my brother and I were watching with her. And then obviously that election night, we didn't know the results for a while because of, what was it, Gore and Bush and the Florida results, whatever. So it was always on my mind, and I guess I would always watch these debates. And I was in college at the time in 2011 when the Republican debate started, and I remember being surprised that not more of my friends didn't want to watch. But I remember we watched one, I think, during the summer, and I was shocked when basically everyone sounded alike except for this old man on stage talking about foreign policy and the Federal Reserve, and I didn't really understand what he was talking about, but it was interesting and different enough that basically that sent me down the rabbit hole.
Well, I think that's an interesting take, as you mentioned, that Doug has made, and I don't know if I've heard him say that directly, but yeah, it does seem like it's a calling. It's kind of in your blood to naturally have a desire to just pursue freedom, and more importantly, I would say the never-ending quest for truth. And so, about what catches my attention from your background, and correct me if I'm wrong here, it sounds like you might even think that there's still some hope for the state to not be what it is. I mean, do you find yourself still following politics pretty closely to the point where uh, you do think it matters who gets elected, or kind of just walk us through your stance on politics?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think for a while, I guess when I considered myself a really hardcore ANCAP, which I guess were the early days. I still consider myself that, but um, yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say. I think it just depends on the day or depends on the week. Um, I think that some days I definitely hold out some hope that somehow um, we can we can find solutions. I wouldn't say through the state, but with the existence of the state still. And then there's other days where I just say we need to get rid of it completely, and try this experiment of 6 or 7 billion different individual nation states, to try it out and see how it goes. But yeah, it really depends. I think if, for example, I know in our other group we've been talking about Javier Milei for a while, and incidentally, I work for an Argentinian Italian company. I work with many different Argentinians, and basically in the last week or two, I've heard two very different perspectives. One perspective is um, he's crazy, and hopefully he won't win. But then when I push back and say, okay, so you want kind of the establishment candidate, they say, no, we don't want him either. So there's no real I don't know, shining light there. On the other hand, there's another perspective shared by a few that are actually, they wish that he had a chance, but they're positive that either the masses will win out and just vote for the establishment candidate, or they'll just, cheat through the election process and elect or select the establishment candidate. So I don't know. I think he's a shining light, possibly, and that would be a really nice change for the country of Argentina. So that's the kind of positive, I guess, effect from the existence of a state. But at the same time, I think for me, it's very obvious that with a stateless society, things would be better for everybody.
Right. And yeah, it's interesting because his name has been pretty polarizing and popular, especially in more of the libertarian AnCap circles. Um, him. So if he were to succeed and step into presidency, it kind of gives me flashbacks, although definitely not identical to. And maybe you'd be sympathetic to this because for me, I first started questioning things in the 2016, 2017 era after I had placed the last vote that I will ever place in my life for Trump. And the reason why I voted for Trump was, one, I would say I was much more brainwashed then. I still actually thought that the state could be an answer. And two, he was different than all the other guys, right? He was, wow, we have an actual entrepreneur, we have an actual business person here who looks like they're funding it all on their own dime. We've just never seen anything in my lifetime like this before. So I did that, and then I'd say, within less than a year, started realizing, unfortunately, no matter how good it seems, a politician is still a politician, and they will kind of just get sucked into the system that's really just stronger than they are. I think even if you come into it with good intentions, the overwhelming power of the true agenda going on is just too much for one person to handle. And so I'm even a skeptic, although I like that Milei is showing more people that he's kind of like the gateway drug to anarcho-capitalism, right? So I am grateful for that, but I'm also highly, highly skeptical, and basically I'd say a non-believer that even if he won, we'd see change. But I'm up for being wrong, and that's why we're here. Is want to hear your take on this, and definitely some other things here today.
Yeah, I think I agree with you pretty much. I mean, I stay. I don't know if the word is politically engaged, but I think I even embarrass myself to how much I keep up with what's going on in politics, whether it's domestic or international. I'm definitely watching the highlights, if not the full Republican debates. And at each conclusion of the debates, I turn off the TV or YouTube or whatever it is I'm watching, and sometimes I think out loud to myself, why did I just waste my time doing that? But I think it's I don't know, for me it's kind of keeping a pulse on what's going on. But yeah, I would say the majority of my time I spend trying to figure out how to I guess insulate myself from all the mess that could come. And that gets into, I think, a lot of what probably many of us were reading and looking into between 2020 and 2022, when we realized that our enemies might be a lot more and all over the place than we thought. So yeah, I'm trying to insulate myself financially, physically, all these things, while also trying to remain politically engaged. Just to, I guess I would call it a pulse check.
Yeah, it never hurts to spectate and speculate, as you even kind of referred to yourself in the bio. So, and if I were you, I definitely wouldn't play it down. Uh, it never hurts to see maybe what the world is thinking, so that way you can make a more educated decision for yourself. Now, somebody who introduced us, we had on AnCap Radio recently, Sven Lawrence, who has a really cool project going on in Sark.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure. Did you guys meet through an investing group, or how did you and Sven get connected?
Yeah, so Sven has a newsletter. It's called Undervalued Shares, and I've been reading that for probably a couple of years. And his newsletter is pretty typical of content that I look for, because I'm basically, I look for investment opportunities where most people aren't looking. because typically they offer the most upside. I think gold is one example of that. Uranium is another example. Sven has some very interesting, very unique ideas on that front, whether it's certain asset classes or certain areas of the world. But yeah, earlier this year, I guess in my bio you also mentioned that I like to travel. I like to travel a lot, and typically to places that people don't really care for, either because it's more interesting or more often than not, it's significantly cheaper than the places where everybody does want to go. So yeah, earlier this year, Sven sent out a note to all his readers. I'd never met him before. I had just, read through his newsletter basically on a monthly basis. And one morning, I think in April, he sent out a note basically inviting anyone from his readership to come join him on a trip to Turkey, specifically Istanbul, to meet with different publicly traded companies on the local stock exchange, to see if it was a worthwhile investment, either overall as a market or specific companies there. When I decided to go, I don't know that I had any hope of really investing in specific companies, but I'd been to Turkey before and I really, really liked it. I always wanted to go back, so it was a good opportunity to do that. And then also, of course, kind of a unique experience. So getting there, as soon as I arrived, I knew it was a good choice because it was a lot of similarly minded readers. I think there were a total of maybe 15 or 20 of us. A few of them were AnCaps. A few were maybe libertarian leaning. I think by nature, anyone that's very interested in finance and investing tend to be, I don't know, at least a little bit anti-tax, and I don't know, they tend to be kind of independent thinkers. So that was one trip we went on. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it a lot. And then Sven actually had another trip just last month, I think, or a month and a half ago, to Budapest. So I jumped on that opportunity as well. So we met with different companies in Budapest to see if that was worth investing in. As a result, I guess just summing up my take on that is that basically I got to know Sven very well, and he kind of introduced me to a couple of his different connections in the AnCap world. And then ever since the Turkey trip, I've been selling some short-term puts on the Turkish ETF. And then actually, while I was in Budapest, I found a company that I liked so much, I invested in it while we were there. So, will I get wealthy? Don't know, but I actually took some concrete steps at least.
Yeah, that's interesting, and we want to give an opportunity to just refresh everyone on who Sven is. And so, to our team here, if you're able to look up Sven's website, I think it's undervalued-shares.com. You can do some searching around and post that in the thread, as well as John's blog, madnessofcrowds.com. If you guys haven't checked that out, it's in his bio. We'll get it in the thread here below. But I love the desire. It sounds like you have to go down the unbeaten path. It's a very AnCap trait for sure. Some of the adventures you were just sharing with us here. Got to ask, the investment in Budapest sounds like it was spur of the moment, but at the same time something that felt like the right thing to do. So, are you able to tell us a little bit about how that took place and maybe what the business model is or what it was?
Yeah, sure. So essentially, oops, sorry, I might have closed the app for a second. You can still hear me, right?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, good. So yeah, I guess from a very macro perspective, Hungary overall is not a very interesting market to most of the world. So as a result, the way I look at that, same as other relatively unknown markets, is that there's probably not a whole lot of downside if it's not very bubbly or yeah, I don't know. Basically, the less interest there is, the less downside there is. So by default, once I learned a little bit more about the economy in Hungary, obviously the political situation matters as well. I think Viktor Orban, the name almost causes the same effect as saying something like Donald Trump or Vladimir Putin. You say Viktor Orban and all of the European Union shakes. So that political combination with the, again, kind of small, unheard of market, by default was interesting to me. So when I was on the plane, I had already thought that maybe I'd invest while there, maybe I'd invest once I did some more research on my way back home. But we stumbled upon this. I wouldn't say stumbled upon, but one of the meetings we had was with an oil company based in Hungary, which I had no idea that they even had an oil company. And it turns out, I don't know if we currently supply them, but the company I work for at some point has actually supplied this company in the past. They're called MOL, MOL. And I think the dividend is something like 10 to 12% annually, which is relatively unheard of in the US, particularly for more than a couple of quarters. And you definitely couldn't find that in the oil and gas industry. But yeah, they operate in several Eastern and Central European countries, which again, most, I guess, investors would probably hesitate to invest in that area because of the geopolitical tensions and kind of the unknown. But I liked what I saw on their financial statements, on their balance sheets. I liked the dividend, and I liked the management that we met with. It seemed they knew what they were talking about, and like I said, very limited downside. I don't think that there's going to be a crash of the Hungarian stock market because there's barely a market there anyway. So yeah, that was kind of my rationale.
Yeah, yeah. Well, loved the thought process and due diligence there. Always interesting to see how AnCaps are uncovering different opportunities around the world. It's one thing I just feel like we'll never run short of. Want to just take a moment here to pause and remind everyone as well, whether you're listening live or on the replay, all you need to do to call in is tap that bottom or that button at the bottom of your screen, the microphone button, request to speak will get you up here. Make a comment, question, talk to John, etc. Make sure you go ahead and follow AnCap Radio and John as well. And I have to bring this one to light because this is fascinating. I see you guys must have hit it off maybe because you had the same name. I don't know. But in your bio, it says you are followed by the legendary John McAfee. So walk us through what the heck is going on there.
Sometimes I forget what's in my bio. Yeah, that was very interesting. I'm trying to remember. Obviously, well, I would say R.I.P., but maybe not R.I.P. and maybe not obvious. If we're to believe what was reported in the news, I believe he died a couple of years ago, which was very sad. I don't remember when he first came on my radar. Obviously, he founded McAfee Antivirus, which I guess I was a kid in the late 90s, early 2000s, and I dealt with all those annoying pop-ups and slowing down my family computer and all that. But I think the next time he was even on my radar was that he released some video. I don't know if it was marketing or if he was just really bored, but it was a very amusing video. If I remember, I'll post it in the comments so people can watch it. But it was like a 2 or 3 minute clip where I won't describe it very much, but I'll post it in the comment. And then about 2015, I don't remember why he did this or what the gist of the company was. It was some kind of software or semi-crypto publicly traded company that essentially he took over. I think it was kind of like a hostile takeover of this tiny company called MGT. And I'd already been investing for a couple years. And I don't know. It was very exciting. He had some very interesting. I guess maybe Edward Snowden had recently been in the news for all the privacy stuff and had escaped to Russia and all that. So privacy was a big deal, at least in libertarian circles. And John McAfee was promising to develop some technology. I don't even remember what it was with this company. So I had invested not a whole lot of money, but enough to make it interesting. And eventually, it was basically the name recognition that made the stock shoot up. So I think the way that we eventually followed each other was that I just tweeted at him a lot saying, "Oh man, keep it up. This is exciting. Keep going." And I guess he liked all the positive commentary on Twitter. So he, I guess, followed me back. It was either that or shortly thereafter when he ran for president of the Libertarian Party. He had a fun last 5 or 10 years of his life and kind of made a splash. So yeah, I remember the day he followed me. I got really excited, and back then I think he was only following like 1,000 people, and then that grew pretty quickly. And then, like I said, I I believe he died in I think it was a Spanish prison or something, but I've left that on my bio because it's kind of a, I don't know, makes for an interesting story.
Oh yeah, I mean he is. And for those tuned in, if you're not familiar with John McAfee, I mean, wow, just a name that I think every AnCap and libertarian should know. Would I say he's the shining example? Honestly, I think the answer would be I don't know. I'm not here to tell you yes or no, but he's just someone worth studying because he was one of a kind. And and maybe you'll laugh when you hear this, John. I was trying to think of how do you describe John McAfee. And also that's cool that he follows you because if he is no longer with us, then now that's even more of a claim to fame there. But uh, it would be like if Doug Casey and Andrew Tate had a baby, it would be John McAfee.
Not sure how that would work, but yeah.
Now, okay, so shifting gears, you have some more. You're contrarian, and you have some controversial things here in your bio as well. I see Michael Malice, who's another pretty well known name in our space, for whatever reason has blocked you. So tell us the story there.
Yeah, I don't. I wish I remembered the tweet specifically, but I'm sure anyone that's familiar with Michael Malice knows that he's got an interesting sense of humor, and I followed him for a while. Obviously, I can't anymore because I'm blocked. But he must have had some tweet either saying, "All right, I don't know," asking some question to the Twitter space, and I'm guessing he said either, and if anyone answers with, I don't know, insert phrase here, I'm going to block you. And I probably used that phrase in response because I thought it was funny, which I was immediately blocked. It was either that, or it's also very possible that I was trying to correct his grammar or spelling in some tweet of his, which, yeah, he blocked me shortly thereafter. And I actually confronted him at some conference, or it was I think it was the 2000th episode of the Tom Woods podcast in Florida, and Michael Malice was there. So I saw him in the hall, and I went and talked to him very briefly and told him, "Yeah, you blocked me. It'd be cool if you unblocked me because I like your content." And he sort of ignored my request, which is fine. I've seen him on Instagram since, and I think his content's gone a little downhill anyway. So I don't mind.
Hey, you know what? It's more of a reason for you guys to maybe actually continue to cross paths. So that's hilarious. And I would also say, you're truly not an ANCAP until you've been blocked, banned, broken some rules. Some like you have to be causing trouble somewhere. Otherwise, you probably don't fit in. So
Yep.
congratulations on that one.
Thank
Maybe
you.
I'm a noob here, but I'm not sure who the other person it is here who blocked you. But actually, you know what? I'll go ahead and click on the profile because actually I think I do recognize that name. But who's this other character that has the great John Leask blocked?
Oh, you don't know John Cusack? He's
I do
he
now that
is
I'm looking at his page. Yeah, I
okay.
do.
Yeah,
So how did that
I
happen?
wouldn't call him one of my favorite actors, but what is he in? I think it's Point Break or Point Blank. He's in some kind of spy, kind of thriller comedy. I really don't know why I know him as an actor because he's very well known. Oh, Say Anything actually was a very big movie of his in the late 80s. He's got that famous scene where he holds up the stereo outside a girl's apartment or house trying to get her attention. I think the first movie I saw with him was Identity, which is like a, I don't know, low budget thriller, but I don't know. For some reason he caught my attention many years ago, and I always liked him as an actor. And I actually didn't know that he blocked me until I saw in the news, in the local news, I live in Houston, that he'd be coming to Houston and they'd be showing one of his films. In fact, it was Say Anything, and there was going to be a Q&A with him afterwards. So I said, "Oh, that'll be great. I wonder why I didn't know this was coming though." So I went and I searched for him on Twitter, but I couldn't find his profile. I think I remember he used to tweet a lot about, I guess, war and foreign policy, actually. So that was one reason that I liked following him on Twitter, but I couldn't find him. but then I think I Googled him on my computer and I wasn't logged in, and sure enough, I found his profile. So within a couple minutes, I realized he'd blocked me. So then I searched my name and I searched his name, and I can't remember. It was probably some comment I made to him during the 2016 election. I think he supported Hillary Clinton, so I think I must have tweeted something snarky or just negative. It was probably, I can almost guarantee it was something like, I love John Cusack, what a great actor, but too bad he's got this silly political philosophy or whatever. And he must have blocked me shortly thereafter. I've had that
Well,
interaction many times.
it's good to know you're not afraid of interaction with. I guess we'll call it. I don't. Titan might be too flattering here, but that's good. So one thing you mentioned earlier is going on the unbeaten paths of life and checking out areas of the world that maybe are less traveled. A recurring topic and theme here on AnCap Radio is where's the best place to truly live through the eyes of an AnCap. And so for you, I mean, what are maybe just a couple places that you've been able to visit, and even if Houston, Texas is one, we're open for discussion there. Where do you think is a good place to live, knowing
So
what you know about the world?
I'll start by saying that for many years, I would always say Indonesia. I lived there from about 2000 until 2007, but then I haven't been back since 2007. But I had really good
It,
memories of.
were you
Uh,
so actually? Was that
uh-huh.
with family, or because I know you're not too much? You got to be in my age range.
Yeah. That was with family. I was there from about when I was 9 till I was 16, I think. Um, so yeah, we lived in Jakarta and a small town called Balikpapan, um, small oil town, and we did travel to Bali and Lombok and a couple different islands around Indonesia, and I always thought it was just great, calm, really nice people. Now I've talked to people since then because that was 15 years ago, and apparently Indonesia's taken a little bit of a turn, and I think their government has been highly influenced by, I don't know, I guess the predominant religion of Islam, and I guess it's not quite what it used to be. Also, Bali went from being somewhat of an unknown gem, other than to like Australians and Kiwis, and now I think it's just kind of been infiltrated by everyone from the Western world and basically everyone else. I think Eat, Pray, Love, sadly, got got it on a lot of people's radar, and now it's just, from what I've heard, not what it used to be. So, um, I don't know what I would say now. I think I'm actually half Colombian. My mom's from Colombia, and Colombia comes up a lot as a place to maybe escape from the crazy places of the world. I know Medellin has been really really popular for the last 5 to 10 years for nomads and AnCaps alike. Um, I I've been going to Colombia more and more to visit family, and I could see it. Um, Unfortunately, COVID and vaccines and all that, it really didn't spare any country, I don't think. So it seems to be that the places with wide open spaces, where you can be really far from government bureaucrats, that seems to work the best. Obviously, Doug is in Uruguay. Um, Seems like a reasonable spot. I've actually been traveling to some interesting places in the U.S. for work. I went to Utah a couple months ago, or just a couple weeks ago, actually. Went to Wyoming a month or two ago, and I'm actually a huge fan of Wyoming. I think the winters are probably a bit too intense for my liking, but um, that kind of geography that doesn't have too many people. And I mean, I've got to mention Texas since I live here. Houston's probably not an ideal place for an ANCAP, but I think that Texas still has a lot of land, with a lot of places that aren't very inhabited. So those are probably good choices as well.
Yeah, I think it's a really this is an interesting topic that personally I've swayed back and forth on, and I think there's a point in every anarcho-capitalist's journey where you realize that the United States is the devil, and that it's a very bad institution, if you will, as far as what it's doing around the world. However, just the character makeup of your average American, personally, I feel as though the U.S. was one of the best countries to handle COVID. Now, I know, you had to have shots and all that type of thing to enter, apparently, right? But when you just look at the body of people similar to you and that I've met um, here, I'm actually in Florida right now, but splitting time between here and Toronto, which I know also sounds crazy. And Jaffer, I know you're here, you're in Canada as well. It's just interesting how, although we like to throw rocks at the establishment, there's some really, really brilliant and solid anarcho-capitalist minds in North America. And the amount of, I don't know if freedom is the right word here, but the amount of options and the speed at which you can execute and get things done in North America, I just haven't really seen that anywhere else in the world. And so, as much as I would love to buy gold and move to Argentina forever, one of my good friends who has done that, every time I try to talk to him, his internet cuts out. And so there's these just interesting ways of looking at things. And so I'll go ahead and say it. I do think, for what it's worth, there's aspects of America and Canada that are totally worth it if you're an AnCap. But the best thing to do is really just position yourself where you're at least aware of what your other options are. Like you said, Indonesia. So that way, if things do get too crazy for your liking, you can always, pack up and leave. So do you feel the same? And were there any other places around the world that you do feel strongly about?
Well, let me comment on that. I haven't felt, let's see. So like I said, I like to see many different countries, and I try to do as much travel as I can each year. Just because, it's kind of, I guess, a sense of adventure or curiosity just to see what's out there. And I always enjoy it while I'm gone. But this year in particular, each time I land back in the United States, there really is a sense of sort of calm, because typically where I've come from is just a disaster, whether it's in terms of, I don't know, traffic or noise or nasty smelling streets or, slow internet, whatever it might be. But I think we really do take for granted kind of the conveniences that we have in the US. So as much of a shit show as Washington, D.C. is, and as much as um, I wish those people didn't exist, um, we do have, I guess, something special stateside. Um, to add on to that, I don't know. I don't know if there's anywhere else that's really that interesting. I always thought that, Australia or New Zealand, but they proved otherwise during the COVID era. Um, Maybe Thailand, Koh Samui. Um, Probably, actually, let me qualify that a little bit. I was in Romania this year, and I think Romania might be one of these kind of hidden gems. And it's a huge country, lots of land, pretty calm. I think most people would hesitate because I can't remember if it's on the. I think it's on the border of Ukraine, so close proximity to Russia. I don't care about that. I don't think there's anything to worry about there. But yeah, I really liked Romania. It was cheap, smart people, smart population. I think a growing middle class, growing industry. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think it just depends on what you're looking for.
Yeah, that's an interesting take about Romania. I haven't been there. I've been to Serbia, and I'm sure the vibes are somewhat similar. I did like the general sense of freedom that I felt personally in Serbia. I did meet some people who I thought maybe overglorified their military and other European countries a bit much. When I'm like, look, you guys can be a bit more independent here if you want to. But Romania, that's that's a good one to put on the list that I don't think we've had shared on the show before. But what you're saying, it definitely lines up, and it's okay if you want to disclose with us that the reason you were there is because you were also hanging out with your buddy Andrew Tate.
That was not the purpose of my trip. Actually, my I work with a friend of mine. He's Romanian, and he was getting married, so I was there for a few days.
That's right. You know what? I actually remember you shared that with me at some point as we've gotten to know each other.
Oh
That's
yeah,
great.
because we were discussing the I think a Vancouver conference.
That's right. And we'll go ahead and do some free marketing for our buddy Giant Bandari, who's been on the show before, and we'll have to get him back on here too. He always does a great job, and he's got a pretty big Asian following. I know I think I don't want to completely dox him, but he's he's somewhere in Asia, and he has a very big Indian following, and says a lot of controversial things based on I think what you would typically find in India. So you can guys go ahead and look up Giant, and then to our team, if you guys want to drop a link to his conference in Vancouver. I've spoken at it before, probably going to again this year. It's called Capitalism and Morality. So if you just type in Capitalism, Morality, Vancouver, we should find that link and drop that below. And so, John, I hope to see you there next year, and we'll keep polishing up your speaking skills. Maybe we get you on stage there too. But yeah, I think the answer to this question is the world is always changing. And so there's never going to be a perfect answer as far as where to live as an AnCap. It's just the awareness, right? And just knowing what options out there exist. And because of you, I definitely have Romania on the list now.
Well, and let me just qualify that by saying that's based on a few days of experience, but definitely worth looking into more. In fact, sometime in the next few days, I'm probably going to go check out I can't remember the name of the organization. I think Fraser Institute, their Economic Freedom Index or whatever that's called, just to see where Romania stands. But yeah, I think, again, after going to a few different countries, that one for sure stood out to me.
All right. And for everybody tuned in here live and on the replay, again, remember to hit the like button, the retweet button, get this one out to your audience. If you haven't followed John yet, follow him, follow AnCap Radio. John's website is below. It's also on his profile. Make sure you subscribe to his blog too. We've got another roughly 10 minutes here. So if you did have a question or a comment, just feel free to tap the microphone button there at the bottom of the screen. We'll get you up here and get you on the mic. So where on the, again, just to continue on the topic of travel, I always just find it so fascinating. Where's somewhere that you want to visit or want to check out, maybe because of something that you've heard? Yeah, mainly where's somewhere that you would like to see based on something you've been told by a fellow AnCap?
Let's see. By the way, before I answer, I'll give a shout out to my friend. I'm not gonna identify him by name, but Paleo Replier is a good friend of mine. So what's up? Let's see. I don't know that it's been well, Uruguay for one. I would definitely like to get to. Doug Casey, Matt Smith are both there. I heard much better things like in 2021. But I think, I don't know if they've soured on it or what, but I think eventually reality catches up and you see that, as we already discussed, no place is perfect. I guess Japan, actually. I've been thinking about Japan a lot. I don't love the concept because it doesn't really fall within typically the categories that I look for a country to visit, namely because it's really, really expensive. And from what I gather, a pretty dense population. So I don't know. Those are two negatives, but obviously Japanese food, Japanese culture. I drive a Toyota Tundra. I've heard excellent things, and everyone that's been there has only spoken very positively about it. I think Roger Veer, I don't know if he still lives there or if he left since, but he always spoke very, very positively about Japan as well. So yeah, probably Japan. I don't know that any AnCap has ever mentioned it to me, but I would like to go to Morocco as well. I've seen a couple different parts in the Middle East. I think Dubai is, I don't know, probably worth visiting, but it's a little bit too mainstream to really draw my attention. So I'm thinking Morocco, Jordan, before, I guess, I don't know if there's any chance of Petra getting destroyed by anything, but yeah, I don't know. Those are the ones that come to mind. I guess eventually Antarctica as well, assuming you can actually get there.
It's funny you say that, and I'll go ahead and do a quick ad here on Antarctica. It's not cheap, right? But I actually know somebody who's making a crazy man, what most would consider a crazy man's trip to Antarctica. It's like a 7 or 8 day venture. I think the price per person is like 150,000 euros or something like that. John, I'll let you know offline who it is, and anyone here who's interested in learning more about the trip to Antarctica. I do know someone that's putting together a group of people that are just as crazy as the one putting it together. So that's
Oh, that's a
cool.
bargain.
Yeah. Um, and Japan. Okay, so that is a fascinating one. One from the outside looking in, I would say similar to America and a lot of these other, bigger countries that have influence around the world. At first glance, you kind of look at Japan and go, the people there are probably somewhat robotic and just abide to whatever the government says. However, there are a lot of people like Roger Veer that I know personally that have made that move and that jump. I've visited Japan before, and I can kind of see why. It's a very, very disciplined country where everyone just kind of does take a personal responsibility. I'll never forget seeing children probably the age of 5 or 4 or 5 literally walking to kindergarten every day or whatever it is. And not that I'm a fan of government indoctrination camps, aka schools, but the fact that you could let your children just kind of walk to school and not have to worry about anything, that speaks volumes. Someone who, we'll put this one in the think tank, and to our team here, if you guys could make a note of this, there's someone named James Corbett who I believe
Oh
lives in
yeah, I think
Japan.
he's in Japan.
I saw him speak at an Acapulco, and that guy is the man. I would highly endorse James Corbett, and I can't believe just in our circle, John, that no one's really brought him up a whole lot. I guess because of his time zone, but that's definitely a good person to check out, James Corbett. Um, Another thing that we like to just continue to hone in on here on AnCap Radio is really the AnCap philosophy and what that kind of means to you, how that speaks to you. It's funny, I see Doug is joining us here, but one thing that I heard him say once that for me I kind of feel like is one of the core principles of being an AnCap is do as you please and be willing to accept the consequences. There's a lot of different variations of this statement that I've heard. But for you, I mean, do you kind of have like a fundamental view or principle on what true anarcho-capitalism is?
Well, so I might. This is going to be annoying to you, but yeah, I think it's do as thou wilt, but be willing to accept the consequences. And
Thank you.
you're welcome. I think that I very much agree with that one. I think it pretty much captures the philosophy as best you can. Um, I don't know. I don't like making it so short though, because from what I can tell, no matter how short and concise you make something, um, if people don't really understand what you're talking about, they're not going to go and Google it for themselves. Maybe 1% might. Um, but on the other hand, I'm about to totally contradict myself and say that for me, probably my guiding philosophy is some kind of hybrid between Murray Rothbard and Ayn Rand. Um, I think that they have weirdly contradicting views on a lot of things, but I think if you take the average of what they say, that's kind of what guides me.
Yeah, that's great. And I know I just mentioned only moments ago we're getting ready to wind things down here. Maybe we'll extend it a bit. And I only say that because Doug, I see you've been able to join us. Did you get a chance to listen in at all today, Doug, on John's conversation?
Unfortunately, Adam, I didn't. I got the time wrong. But sounds interesting so far.
Yeah, yep. It's been great. I'll
What,
give you a quick recap, and then maybe we can extend this one a little bit. But basically, so John shared his background. I don't know if you're familiar with his upbringings, oil and gas industry, connected to us through Sven Lawrence. He's lived in Indonesia, traveled to a lot of different places. He actually put Romania in the hat as far as a potential ANCAP paradise, which that was a first, and his take on that was pretty interesting. Talked about a few investments he's made recently, and really now we're just kind of boiling down to, how would you, if you could summarize what the ANCAP philosophy is. On that note, do you have ever have like a 1 or 2 sentence phrase that you would use that really describes what anarcho-capitalism is?
Oh, I haven't crystallized it, but I heard John say, that's Aleister Crowley's basic quote: "The whole of the law shall be do as Crowley. Uh, the whole of the law shall be do as thou wilt." And AnCaps would append, but be prepared to accept the consequences after that. It's a scientists, of course, have for many years been trying to put all basic physical laws into just one great law. And I think, well, Rick Mayberry has popularized quite correctly what he calls the two great laws: do all that you say that you're going to do, and don't aggress, or he would say impinge against other people or their property. But I think that modification of Crowley's law is even better and simpler. It's just one great law, because everybody will do what they want to do, but they have to remember, accept the consequences, which means you have to think out what the consequences of it will be. And that would include what the morality, as you see it, of whatever you're doing is. So I haven't answered the question, but just some thoughts on it.
100%. John, I mean, any further thoughts there?
No, I mean, I would agree 100% with that. I mean, I think there's enough philosophers that have come before, and I think we have enough that are working on this that I'm not going to attempt to to put this into my own words, not just yet.
Yeah. And so, Doug, also, we brought up the topic again of here we're calling it the Guy Fawkes Award. I know internally we're trying to figure out how we want to zone in on this this award that we'll be giving to someone who's fighting the state and winning. Is there anything further on that topic that you've had some time to meditate on that you think our community should be aware of?
Well, one thing we have to do, like John, did you notify any people on your mailing list or Twitter list or whatever media lists you have that that you were on AnCap Radio today or not? I'm just wondering.
Oh man, okay. I'm glad you're just wondering and you're not preparing to scold me. But no, I told maybe two or three that I would be doing this. Unfortunately, the people that I told aren't even on Twitter, so that was, I guess, a wasted effort. But that's a good point. I probably need to read some more marketing books to to explore how all that works.
Yeah, because everybody has, I mean, everybody has a mailing list in their Google account. Like I was just idly looking at the number of email addresses I have in my Google account the other day, and it's about 3,200 people that I've sent emails to. I don't even know who most of them are anymore, but I suppose I should send that out to everybody and tell them they ought to tune into this. And anybody that's on the show should go to their Google account, or if they have their own podcast or their own newsletter, or God knows what, should send that out so that one girl tells another. And since we're offering this $1,000 roughly per month award to people that have done something, you think that would increase the listener base. I mean, it's $1,000 a month we're giving away. That's not insignificant. I mean, everybody would like a grand coming into their account. And I think when we talked with Dave about it the other day, we decided that 20% of that should be payable to the person that nominates the person who's doing something every month. And if we don't award it 1 month, it'll compound. It'll be 2,000 the next month. And if we don't find anybody that's worthy that month, it should go to 3,000. And it'll give people more of a reason to listen to AnCap Radio and participate in it. Because smashing the state should be a participation sport. I mean, I like to bring up the Robert Crumb cartoons. I don't know if many people know who Robert Crumb was anymore. He used to do really outrageous comics during the 60s with Mr. Natural and the Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers and Fat Freddy's Cat. And they were great. And one meme that he liked to promote is, hey, kids, don't forget to be the first on your block, to do your part, to help smash the state. So, that's a nice meme to get circulating. Kind of a blast from the past.
Right. Yeah, we'll have to find that. And I like that, that maybe we'll have to create a new, popularize, I should say, the sport, state smashing. It's a good way to put it.
But we have to be careful because, of course, the bad guys are on the lookout for anybody that, is unconventional. And I hate to get on more bad guy lists than I already am on personally.
Yeah, and that's funny. And I see Dave Henderson is here too. Dave, I just want to let you know, perhaps you're busy. I did send you an invite to speak. If you can't come up here, that's completely fine. But just want to let you know that. Speaking of someone who's definitely smashed the state, I don't know if you knew that this is a fun fact about John here, Doug. John McAfee actually follows his Twitter account. Did you ever get a chance to interact with John?
You mean, are you talking to me and John McAfee?
I guess, yeah, sorry, because there's two Johns. So John Leask, who's our guest today, and as we know, at least we've been told, McAfee has passed. But before he passed, he actually followed John here on Twitter, and so we went down a few McAfee rabbit holes. But I'm curious, in your journeys, did you ever get a chance to cross paths with him or get to know him at all?
Oh, yeah, very definitely. I spent a day with John McAfee and stayed over at his house in Tennessee for a night. Me and McAfee and his three bodyguards. He was kind of paranoid, frankly. And he was a gun guy, too, which was nice. So we related on that. And actually, I was going to set up a trip to the Solomon Islands with myself, John McAfee, PJ O'Rourke, who I guess a lot of people might know who PJ was. He's dead now, unfortunately. And oh God, who else? Anyway, somebody else that's why can't I remember his name right now? And it would have been Mr. Toad's Wild Ride in the Solomon Islands because I had an old subscriber who was very well connected with the newly elected president of the Solomon Islands, and she was promoting me and my idea for radically reforming dogshit governments to him. And I thought that would be fun to bring along some interesting guys with McAfee and O'Rourke. And oh, Jesus, who am I forgetting? This is embarrassing. Anyway, it turned out that the president had his ear was turned by the his little deep state around him, who didn't want their rice bowls broke. And so we canceled the trip and it fell apart. And then McAfee got killed because I don't think he suicided. And O'Rourke died. And so, sic transit gloria mundi.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty cool. I didn't know that you guys had that type of relationship. So who was your original connector? How did you meet John?
I'm trying. Oh, how did I meet him? There was a woman that worked for him that I met at Freedom Fest, and she insisted, "No, you guys have to get together. You'll get along great." Blah blah blah, and we did, and she was right. But I'm sorry, he's not around anymore. I mean, he was a wild character.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was telling all of our listeners earlier, if they're not familiar with him, I don't know if he's the the shining example or the pinnacle of anarcho-capitalism, but definitely someone worth studying and kind of seeing just the body of work that he did.
Yeah, he really was. I mean, he was highly unconventional. He did what he wanted to do, and damn the consequences. I suspect his totem animal would have been probably the same as my totem animal, the honey badger. Anybody know anything about the honey badger?
Of course, but in your own words, tell us about the honey badger.
Oh, well, the best way is, rather than have me describe it, it would be to go to YouTube and YouTube honey badger don't care, and you'll see what I'm talking about.
Yeah. To our team, if you could find that that clip from YouTube, I know what Doug's talking about. I guess just pull up honey badger don't care, put that link below in the thread. We will wind it down here soon. Everyone, thank you for those who have joined us here on AnCap Radio. If you're not following John, Doug, AnCap Radio, myself, be sure to give a follow. Check out the links in the thread below. We had some great ones today. You can subscribe to AnCap Radio updates as we continue to scale here. But one other topic that I want to get your take on, Doug, before we wind it down, is we talked about Javier Milei, and John actually happens to work with a lot of Italians and Argentinians, and so he's gotten their insight on what's going on in Argentina now. I'm of the belief that I do think that he's a nice gateway drug for people to start understanding where we're coming from. But I am concerned that if he gets into power, that he could somewhat do what Trump did. And obviously they're not identical, but Trump was this promising figure that wasn't like all of the other politicians. He got into power and kind of went on to do what any politician would do. Do you think the same thing would happen to Milei if he were to get into office?
I don't. I think that Milei is sincerely ideologically driven. So I don't think he'll be corrupted in that way. I'm increasingly of the opinion that if he's elected, and who knows, with the Kirchenreich stuffing ballot boxes and all kinds of things, I don't know what to think is going to happen in Argentina this Sunday. But I'm afraid that since Milei's party, which is a new party, only has a few representatives in the Argentine Senate or the Argentine House, they're not going to be able to do anything as far as changing the laws because they just don't have any power there. And Milei will try to do things that the Argentine president can do, and I'm not sure how much he can get away with. But everybody's going to be fighting against it because all of the deep state in Argentina, these criminals, and they're mostly criminals, are not going to want to have their rice bowls broken. So they're going to fight them tooth and nail. And so I'm afraid it'll be a disaster. And once again, libertarianism and free market principles will be further besmirched, and they'll elect somebody even worse the next time. So, but it's great that he's out there because it's the first time in history anywhere that an actual ANCAP stands a chance of being elected of a major country. It's pretty amazing.
I agree. John, any further thoughts there?
Let's see. I guess regarding this topic in particular, I would say no, but I know we're starting to wrap up. I did want to mention two more things that occurred to me during the discussion, and I guess both of them sort of relate to Doug. The first one is, I think at the beginning I was mentioning that, ANCAPs or libertarians in general, it might be some kind of genetic defect that we're born with. And I can't remember if it was speculator or drug lord, or maybe it was even assassin, where this concept of the alpha rats and the beta rats are mentioned. And then how there's this third type of rat, the gamma rat, which is, even though these are fictional books, I believe that they're referencing very specific experiments from I don't know when. So I thought that was interesting, and I think that gamma rats probably do represent, I guess I'll say ANCAP specifically, pretty well. And then the only other comment I was going to make was, I want to say sometime in the last month or two, I heard Doug mention Kazakhstan as a possible place. I don't remember if it was to start a business or to, escape the state or find some peaceful home. But I actually visited Kazakhstan in, I think it was late 2013, because my parents were living there at the time. And I actually liked it a lot. It was calm, people were nice, a very unique kind of population that speak not just Kazakh, but also Russian. And since I'd been studying Russian, then that was kind of fun to practice while I was there.
Yeah, that's very interesting, John. I suspect I would have been mentioning Uzbekistan as opposed to Kazakhstan. Although when I've been to Kazakhstan a couple times, as well as its next door neighbor, Kyrgyzstan. And yeah, I liked the place. Obscure area. Borat gave it a bad name because he claimed to have been from Kazakhstan, but he's not welcome there. Borat, or what's his actual name? That's the
Did
character.
did the country actually ban that actor? That's pretty funny if that is what happened.
Yeah, what's his name? Oh God,
Sasha something. Which
Sasha Baron Cohen, I think that's his name. I think he's been banned from there because a lot of people couldn't tell that it wasn't a documentary. I mean, really.
Well, he and I remember a couple months ago there was a lot of Russell Brand news coming out, and I can't remember specifically what it was for, but Sasha, he kind of strikes me as someone who would be somewhat on that edge of maybe even being a little bit of an AnCap, just with some of the things that he does say.
Yeah, you're right. It's a little bit like Bill Maher, who's got, pretty big on the comedy show circuit in the U.S., his television show. And, Maher is in the same way. He says stupid socialist sounding things, but of late, since in the process of defending free speech, he's been coming out with ultra libertarian positions. Most recently, the thing that I saw was where he was having a discussion with who is the black guy who's an astrophysicist, well known as an astrophysicist, popularizer of astrophysics. Who am I thinking of?
I think it's Neil deGrasse.
Yeah, Neil deGrasse, right. And I was really pleasantly surprised with Bill Maher's attitudes and disappointed in deGrasse's, conventional, you can know a lot about astrophysics and know absolutely nothing about economics or morality, which is what he was demonstrating. So he was very woke. Yeah, so you're right. I mean, Sasha Cohen could easily flip just logically to libertarianism, as seems like Bill Maher is on the point of doing many times.
Right. And I want to make sure I'm getting the right person too. Is it Bill Maher? Is it Bill Burr?
Bill Burr's different. He's a very funny comedian. Nope, different guy.
Okay, because I've seen Bill Burr say some things that make sense too.
Oh, totally, absolutely. And talking about comedians, George Carlin, who's dead now, rules the roost. But I would say Bill Burr and Dave Chappelle. I mean, Dave Chappelle's great. I mean, he actually rivals George Carlin a lot of the time.
100%. And I've heard Chappelle talk about, and he hasn't said it this way, but in some ways it sounds like the country of Ghana is somewhat of an AnCap paradise as well. I know you're pretty familiar with African countries, Doug. Have you been to Ghana?
I have, actually. I've played my first tournament polo game, believe it or not, in Ghana, courtesy of the Accra Polo Club, who fettered us. I mean, we got business class airfare and everything. They paid for everything while we were played maybe 2 games or something like that in the Aqua Stadium on crazy, half wild little stallions. And it was just insane. It was only like a dirt polo field, but we got to see most of Ghana everywhere. And this was 25 years ago. And it was actually quite nice. Yeah, I was fine with Ghana. And I'd say it's the mellowest country in West Africa. I think I can say that. Although the last country in West Africa I visited was Mauritania, which is a place nobody goes, basically, even though it's a big place. It's about the size of Texas. So anyway, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I haven't heard of that one. I do recall you putting Namibia on my map, and that is one definitely on my bucket list still. So do you still feel the same about Namibia?
I do. It's a giant country with how many peoples it had? 4 or 5 million. And they're all in one place. And yeah, it's a very interesting place. Nobody remembers the Katzenjammer Kids, which were a cartoon that were popular long ago. I mean, when I was a little kid, they used to have the Katzenjammer Kids. But anyway, they were a couple of German kids that were living in Africa in the cartoons. And, the people said they were kicked out of Germany in 1917 for being too warlike. Uh, so that was the cartoon. And I have always wondered, because they were in one of the German colonies. The Germans used to have colonies in Africa. Namibia, which used to be called Southwest Africa, was one colony. Cameroon was another German colony. And Tanganyika was a third German colony in Africa. And of course, they lost them all after World War One. So I don't know how I got off on that, but Africa, yeah, we could talk about possibilities and prospects in Africa, but things are changing so rapidly in the whole world today with the collapse of the American empire.
Well, I recall, and this before we got to know each other, but I did read an article of yours a few years ago, and I just remember the picture chosen for it was the continent of Africa embodied by a Chinese flag, and I remember it was just a really fascinating read. So maybe we will have to do a session just on what the future of Africa does look like, because from a speculation perspective, it probably is. I mean, would you say it's number one out there as far as continents to speculate on?
Yes, I would say so. I would say that if you're a young guy, and I emphasize guy as opposed to girl for Africa, uh, yeah, you've got a better chance of going to Africa more or less penniless and coming out wealthy than you would absolutely going to Europe as a young American. I mean, that's just a tourist place, is all it is. And South America is too developed, and Americans are too well known. But nobody goes to Africa, quite frankly. Everybody's afraid, you know, afraid of it. Frankly, it's kind of alien, and it is kind of crazy. Those governments are all crazy, but that's opportunity. So we could talk about that and what I would do if I was a young guy and wanted to make my fortune. I would definitely go to Africa. That'd be way on the top of my list. Maybe not the first place I'd visit upon leaving the West. It's kind of jumping off the deep end, but that's where the opportunity lies.
And Doug, if I might add, I think I mentioned this to you before, but I actually went to Tanzania and Uganda last summer on a trip with the Schoolins, basically going to speak to different students in both of those countries. And I agree with you. It's a rough place. I mean, I enjoyed the trip a lot. I met lots of interesting, smart young people, and I think that it probably requires some time. I don't know, in a really quiet spot to think about what kind of opportunities. For sure, there's a lot of opportunity there, but it would definitely take some effort and some creative thinking to exploit that.
Yeah, I was always looking at what we might call political entrepreneurship as opposed to business per se, because trying to get into any business where you're actually trying to create real wealth, these governments make it so hard and do the best they can to make it uneconomic that I always think in terms of kind of being a hit and run speculator as opposed to trying to build a business. And Africa, since it's so political, is especially good for speculation as opposed to business. But I don't know. I mean, look, you know how you make $1 million? You buy 1,000,000 widgets one place and sell them for $1 and sell them someplace else for $2. Shouldn't be hard to do if you can find the right widget.
Well, there we go. It's the quest for the widget to be continued. Want to go ahead and bring this one down for a landing here. If you're just tuning in or listening on the replay, again, this is AnCap Radio. If you haven't already, be sure to hit the like button, the retweet button, get this out to your friends, family, network. Follow everyone up here on stage. Today, our feature was John Leask, and we'll go out on this note, John, and then Doug. I know you weren't here for the whole time, but for the time that you were, would like to hear your take. So just your number one key takeaway from today's discussion. John first.
Let's see. Well, first of all, Doug, I'm glad you were able to join. I enjoyed hearing your thoughts as always. And yeah, no, I always appreciate getting to speak to people who don't think so differently than I do, since most of my days I'm flooded with people who think exactly the opposite way of me. In fact, you'll appreciate this. I'll leave you with one kind of parting anecdote from this morning. I walked into my office this morning, and I saw a lady who I work with. She's in administration and finance, and we were waiting for the elevator, and she had just exited this room where they were doing some flu shots. And I thought, okay, let's hope that I can get into the elevator and not have to have this discussion. And sure enough, she says, "Oh, hey, John, how's it going? Don't forget to get your flu shot." And my sincere response to her was, "Yeah, I haven't gotten a flu shot in a long time." And for the next 30 seconds, somehow the conversation went to vaccines and COVID. And I just kind of smiled without having that discussion, because as much as I like having it, I think you can't really have an anti-flu shot or anti-COVID vaccine elevator pitch in 20 seconds. So I just kind of left it.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, John. And this is the problem. It's that I actually don't like to be around or communicate or anything with people that are conventional or socialists or want to get their flu shot, because it's just too degrading an experience. And perhaps that's one of the nice things about this radio station, small as it is right now, but I think it's going to grow a lot if we promote it properly, is that you can get to know other people that are on the same philosophical and moral wavelength as you are, as opposed to have to deal with all these crazy chimpanzees out there that I find it hard to communicate with them.
Agreed. We do have for what it's worth, a little bit more of a safe space here to feel normal, if that is what we're after. So, Doug, your parting words or really your takeaway from today's discussion?
Oh, well, it was very pleasant to, be here. That's all I can say, and exchange views with people that were on the same wavelength. I mean, because we're only a teeny weeny rounding error of the human population. Although maybe I'm wrong, because a third or half of the voters in Argentina are going to vote for an AnCap. Although I don't kid myself in thinking they actually know what they're voting for, but cause for optimism. There aren't many, but that's one.
Absolutely. And as a reminder, as we kind of finalize the terms of this award here that we're giving out, for now, we're going to go ahead and we're calling it the Guy Fawkes Award. And it's an award for someone who is battling the state and winning, or as we call state smashing. If you have a nominee for the Guy Fawkes Award, just tweet them at AnCap Radio. It's $1,000 cash prize, and it's actually a Bitcoin prize. So the value of that 1,000 that you could win actually increases from what it looks like. Maybe a little volatility mixed in there. And not only the nominee, but the nominor will get a percentage of that. I believe we're going to go with about 20%. So just remember, if you know someone, and we did have somebody nominate someone who's deceased. So remember, it's got to be someone who's alive, but somebody who's fighting the state right now and winning. All you got to do is tweet them at AnCap Radio, give us a link or a video with your nominee. We'll be able to track you as the nominor. We'll have some internal discussions on how we want to distribute this, but the cash prize is for sure. We're really looking forward to it, and probably going to announce that here within the next 30 days. So that's all. Go ahead, Doug.
Oh, that makes good sense, Adam. And I guess when you nominate somebody, you ought to give a reference to exactly why and what that person is doing right now to help smash the state.
Yep, exactly. So again, thank you all for joining us here today on AnCap Radio. Go ahead and follow John Leask, today's feature, speculator, investor. He's the writer and author over at madnessofcrowds.com. If you haven't subscribed to his list, go ahead and do that. We've got Doug up here and our team. Thank you so much. Thank you all for who joined us here live and again on the replay. We will be back here next Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern. And lastly, make sure you subscribe to AnCap Radio email updates. There is a link in the thread below where you can go drop your name and your email. We'll keep you posted as we continue to scale this platform. A lot of cool things coming. And if you missed that, we talked about it earlier in the show. So go ahead and head back and check it out. So for AnCap Radio, I'm Adam Carswell. That's John Leask, Doug Casey. Thank you so much for joining us here today. And we will see you guys next week.
Thanks, Adam.